My name is Amber Wilson. I'm 32 years old, and nothing could have prepared me for the sight that greeted me that day. Walking through the front door earlier than expected, I froze as I saw my daughter, 8-year-old Madison, on her knees, scrubbing the kitchen tiles with trembling hands. That moment split my life into before and after. As a marketing executive, frequent travel comes with the territory. I'd flown back from a conference a day early, hoping to surprise my family. Instead, I uncovered a truth that would change everything. Madison wasn't alone by accident. She'd been left behind. My in-laws, Robert and Eleanor Henderson, had taken their biological granddaughter, Lily, on a cheerful excursion to the amusement park. Madison had been excluded. Again. This wasn't new, but this time it was impossible to ignore. What followed shattered any illusion of harmony. Tell me, where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments and don't forget to subscribe if you believe every child deserves unconditional love. Today, I'll share how I defended my daughter when silence was no longer an option. I've always been driven. My career in digital marketing has climbed steadily from internships to high-level strategy roles at leading firms. It hasn't been easy balancing motherhood with client demands and business flights, but for me, Madison comes first, every single time. She's not just my daughter. She's the center of my world, the heartbeat of every decision I make. I first met Scott Henderson at a backyard barbecue hosted by mutual friends. He was charming, kind, and immediately bonded with Madison, who was barely 2 back then. Her curly hair bounced as she ran around in the grass, giggling. Scott sat on the ground with her, reading silly picture books, doing cartoon voices, and making her laugh. He didn't flinch when I told him Madison wasn't mine biologically. He embraced her completely. Madison came into my life through heartbreak. My cousin Stephanie, practically my sister since childhood, died in a devastating car crash with her husband. They left behind their daughter, alone, scared, and orphaned. I was single, in my 20s, and utterly terrified. But when I saw Madison's tear-filled eyes, I knew I had no other choice. The legal adoption process was exhausting, full of court hearings and paperwork, but worth every moment. I vowed then to provide Madison with the home and love she deserved. Scott proposed a year into our relationship. He got down on one knee with a ring for me and a heart-shaped necklace for Madison. "Will both of you become my family?" he asked, eyes glistening. We both said yes. After we married, Scott formally adopted her too. Madison had a father again, one who chose her with his whole heart. That's when I met the Hendersons. At first, Scott's parents were polite. Eleanor brought a book for Madison, Robert handed over a gift bag. But something always felt off. Their politeness lacked warmth. During that first visit, Eleanor examined Madison's features and said, "She's adorable, but she doesn't really resemble either of you." The words burned. Scott explained Madison's adoption without hesitation, speaking proudly and lovingly. Then came Michael, Scott's younger brother, and his daughter Lily. Coincidentally, Lily and Madison were born just weeks apart. At family gatherings, the two cousins played together easily. But over time, differences became glaring. At birthdays, Lily received elaborate gifts, dolls with full wardrobes, expensive tech toys, while Madison was handed basic art supplies. Group photos were taken, but only Lily appeared on their social media. At Christmas, Lily got a tablet, Madison unwrapped a box of crayons. It wasn't subtle, Scott noticed. After one particularly stark holiday, he confronted them. "She is my child. I expect you to love her the way you love Lily," he said firmly. "You're being sensitive," Robert replied. "We love them both. Madison just seems more into simple things." Yet the inequality kept piling up. During Easter egg hunts, Lily's side of the yard had more eggs. At Thanksgiving, the adults asked Lily about her school friends, but overlooked Madison entirely. Children sense more than we think. One night, Madison asked me quietly, "Why won't Grandma Eleanor let me bake cookies with her like Lily?" I had no answer that wouldn't break her heart. I tried to fill the gaps: special weekend routines, bedtime stories, surprise trips to the ice cream parlor. Scott tried too. "They're old-fashioned," he'd say. "Give them time." But deep down, I feared time wouldn't change anything. That's why the Chicago conference became such a dilemma. It had been postponed twice already, and my boss made it clear this meeting could land a massive client. I finally said yes, carefully planning everything. Scott reassured me. "I've got it all under control. Dance recitals, school pickups, homework, we're a team, remember?" Madison seemed excited about their weekend plans, board games, pancakes, and that half-built birdhouse in the garage. Then, 48 hours before my flight, Scott got a call. His company's biggest account was in crisis. He had to fly to Boston immediately. Our babysitter was out of town. Our backup had another engagement. Options dwindled quickly. That's when Scott said the words that now haunt me, let's ask my parents. Scott tried to reassure me as we packed Madison's overnight bag. They've been saying they want to bond more with her. Maybe this is the opportunity they need. His voice was calm, but my hesitation lingered. Every memory of the subtle slights, the unequal gifts, the passive dismissals, they all echoed louder than his optimism. I just don't know if that's a good idea, I admitted. My mom could come, maybe she could fly in from Arizona? She's still recovering from the surgery, Scott reminded gently, zipping up Madison's small duffel. And we're out of options. You'll be back soon. I'll be home even earlier. Reluctantly, I nodded. A part of me clung to the hope that maybe, just maybe, this could be the start of something better for Madison. Maybe uninterrupted time would soften their attitude. Eleanor and Robert arrived just after sunrise, trailing rolling suitcases and dressed as if they were preparing for a cruise rather than a weekend babysitting their granddaughter. Don't worry, we've got it under control, Eleanor said, barely glancing at me as she scrolled through something on her phone. We've raised 2 children. One little girl won't be a problem. I crouched down in front of Madison and gently brushed a curl from her cheek. Be good for Grandma and Grandpa, okay? I'll call every night. And remember, Daddy will be home before me. She gave a brave little nod, though her eyes told another story. I'll be okay, Mommy. I'll do extra chores to help them. My heart twisted. Baby, no. You don't need to do chores. Just be yourself. Have fun, okay? I love you more than all the stars, she whispered into my ear as I hugged her tight. To the moon and back, I replied, barely keeping the tremble out of my voice. The conference in Chicago kicked off at a dizzying pace. Presentations, client briefings, late dinners with account executives. Each evening, I carved out time to check in with Madison. The first night, she looked a bit tired on the video call. We had spaghetti, she said quietly. Then watched that movie with the talking dog. Sounds fun. Did you laugh? A little, she replied. Grandma made me clean up my toys 2 times. She said I was messy. Madison wasn't messy. If anything, she was meticulous, her books always in order, her craft supplies color-coded. They just have different rules, I said, trying to keep my voice neutral. You'll be back home soon. The second night didn't go as planned. I called at our usual time, but Robert answered instead. She's still finishing her meal. She'll call you after. But the phone stayed silent. I waited another hour before trying again. This time, Eleanor answered. She's asleep, she said shortly. Exhausted from all the activity. Try tomorrow. I didn't sleep well that night. The following morning, Scott called from Boston. The client's pushing more meetings into Friday. I won't be back until Saturday. Are your parents okay staying longer? Yeah, they offered. Said they're already settled in. I wanted to feel grateful. Instead, I felt increasingly uneasy, then, a surprise. The client signed the deal early, canceling the rest of our schedule. My colleague offered to take me sightseeing, but I declined. I needed to get home. Something in my gut told me it was time. I booked the earliest flight I could find and landed in Boston late that afternoon. As I waited for my luggage, I texted Scott. Coming home early. Can't wait to see Madison. He replied quickly. Stuck at the office. Clients dragging out meetings. Love you both. Driving through our neighborhood, I felt a mix of anticipation and anxiety. Our street was quiet. Too quiet. When I pulled into the driveway, I immediately noticed something odd. No sign of Eleanor and Robert's vehicle. No child's scooter on the sidewalk. No sign of life inside. My key turned in the lock, and I stepped into silence. Madison? I called, stepping inside and dropping my bag by the door. No response. I checked the living room. Empty, though a couch cushion was turned sideways. Her stuffed rabbit, Mr. Flopsy, lay discarded beneath the coffee table. That alone gave me pause. Madison never went anywhere without him. I in the dining room, 2 plates sat on the table. Crumbs. An abandoned cup of juice. A napkin crumpled beside it. Everything looked rushed. Left mid-meal. I called again, louder. Madison? Grandma? Grandpa? The stillness in the house grew more unnerving. Then I heard a faint, rhythmic sound from the kitchen. Like scrubbing. And sniffling. I rushed in, and there, on her knees beside the refrigerator, was my daughter. A rag in one hand, tears on her cheeks, red lines under her eyes from crying. She was cleaning, scrubbing the linoleum with all her tiny might, her little fingers raw from the effort. My breath caught. Madison. She froze, then looked up, startled and wide-eyed. Mommy? I knelt beside her and took her hands in mine. What are you doing? Why are you cleaning the floor? I spilled my juice, she stammered. Grandma said I made a mess. She said I needed to clean it before they got back or I'd be in trouble. Tears welled up in my eyes as I pulled her into my arms. You're not in trouble. You're a child. Spilling juice isn't a crime. But she said I don't try hard enough to be a good girl, Madison whispered. My heart cracked in two. I held her tighter, kissing the top of her head. You're perfect exactly the way you are. You don't have to earn anyone's love. Ever. Madison knelt on the chilly tile in our kitchen, gripping a stiff brush too big for her little hands. White squares were streaked with soapy sludge, a bucket of sudsy water beside her. Tear-streaked cheeks were crusted with residue, damp curls stuck to her forehead. She wore yesterday's clothes, the same outfit I'd glimpsed during our last video call. Her concentration was so absolute she didn't even hear me enter. Madison. My voice was barely audible, choked by shock. The brush slipped. She froze and looked up, eyes wide. For a moment, fear creased her expression, then recognition. Mommy? She whispered, voice uncertain, as though she needed proof I was really there. I rushed across the floor in 3 steps and knelt beside her, ignoring the cold wetness. Baby, what are you doing? Where are Grandma and Grandpa? Her lip quivered. Tears returning. I spilled grape juice this morning, she confessed softly. Grandma said I need to learn responsibility, so I have to scrub this entire kitchen until they come back. My heart plummeted. Whole floor? Madison, where are they? She stared at the tiles. They went with Lily to Adventure World. The one with big roller coasters. They left me. Anger and betrayal coiled in my chest. She nodded. Grandma said I wouldn't appreciate it like Lily would, because Lily's their real granddaughter. My chest tightened, and tears stung my eyes. I wrapped her small body against mine. How long were you by yourself? Since breakfast, she murmured. Grandma said they'd return at dinner, and that I'd better finish the floor or I wouldn't get dessert. And that I need to stop being so clumsy. 4 hours of isolation and endless scrubbing, my daughter forced to clean while the real granddaughter got to enjoy an amusement park. I felt sick to my core. Has it ever happened before? I asked gently. She nodded once. Yesterday they picked Lily up to go shopping. I asked but they said I whined too much. Even though I was scared. I closed my eyes, tears and fury burning together. What else happened while I was gone? She trembled, then began telling me in pieces, Lily being lavished with toys while she tidied, helping with chores while Lily played, comments about not being true Henderson blood, being told she ought to feel lucky to be with us instead of abandoned, betrayal stated as fact. The sting of each word cut deeper. All at once, the anger erupted. Madison Elizabeth Wilson Henderson, you are not lucky because you're with us. We're the lucky ones. Every day, I thank my lucky stars I get to be your mom. I held her tighter. You are the most precious person in my life. I am so very sorry this happened. She sniffled. Are you mad I spilled grape juice? Of course not, I affirmed gently, brushing wet curls from her face. Accidents happen. No one should make you scrub the entire floor, and they should never leave you alone. I helped her up, impressed by how fragile she looked. Knees were red and scraped, hands wrinkled and irritated from harsh cleaning solution. Let's clean you up, and then get some ice cream. In the bathroom, I gently washed away tears and grit, then applied lotion to her chapped hands. Mommy's not in trouble, she asked. No one's going to punish you, I promised firmly. But Grandma and Grandpa are in very big trouble. With me. Her eyes searched mine. Will you yell at them? I inhaled deeply. No, I won't yell, but I will make sure that never happens again. No one mistreats my girl. Once she was clean, I took her to her favorite ice cream shop. She sat quietly, eating rainbow sherbet with small, deliberate licks. I watched her closely. She looked thinner, with dark circles under her eyes, and her usual bright chatter was replaced by gentle glances back at me, always seeking reassurance. My resolve crystallized in that moment. I would fiercely protect her, challenge anyone who failed her, and ensure our bond was never threatened again. Sweetheart, I need you to walk me through everything that happened while I was gone, I said, keeping my tone as soft as possible. Not just what happened today, but all 3 days. Even if you think it might upset me, it's important I understand. With slow, hesitant bites between spoonfuls of her melting sherbet, Madison began to speak. What she described made my stomach churn. That first morning, she said, was tolerable. Tense, yes, but nothing overt. Eleanor had kept to herself mostly. And Robert had seemed busy watching the news. Madison had kept quiet, hoping to avoid doing anything wrong. It wasn't until that evening that things began shifting. During a board game, Madison accidentally knocked over a piece. Lily laughed. Madison apologized. Still, Eleanor told her she needed to be more careful, and made her clean up the entire game by herself while Lily skipped off to the living room. The following day, the mask came off completely. Lily got to pick a movie, Madison explained. And I asked if I could watch one too. But Grandma said I had to read instead. I asked if she was being punished. No, Madison replied. She just said Lily earned it and I needed to work on being quieter. Did you do something to get in trouble? No, we were both laughing too loud during a game. But only I got in trouble. That alone would have been disturbing. But it kept getting worse. Grandma said Lily knows how to behave, Madison added, her expression troubled, because she comes from good breeding. I stiffened. What do you think that means, baby? Like, puppies, she guessed, frowning. She said it like it was important. I swallowed my fury. It's a rude way to talk about families. It's not a kind or fair thing to say. Okay? Then came the part that hit hardest. Lily got chicken nuggets, Madison said. I asked if I could have some too, and Grandma told me they were for Lily only. She gave me a sandwich. She actually said that? Yeah. She said those were special, and I shouldn't expect too much. There was more. The amusement park wasn't the first time Madison had been left behind. They went to the movies yesterday, she said. Lily picked it. I asked if I could come, and Grandma said no, because I was acting ungrateful about dessert. What dessert? I asked, although I already knew Lily had ice cream after lunch. I just asked if I could have some too. Grandma said I was being disrespectful. My fists clenched on the steering wheel as we pulled into the driveway. You did nothing wrong, I assured her. Asking for something fair is never wrong. As she finished her story, I knew with absolute certainty, this was no misunderstanding. This wasn't a case of miscommunication or old-fashioned values. This was sustained cruelty, cloaked in condescension and disguised as discipline. And it ended right now. Once home, I led Madison upstairs, filled the tub with bubbles, and let her soak while I sat just outside the door, dialing Scott. He didn't pick up. I texted, call me right away. It's about Madison. Urgent. He rang 10 minutes later, sounding breathless. What's going on? Is everything all right? I stepped into our bedroom and closed the door. No, it's not. You need to listen. I told him everything, the abandonment, the demeaning comments, the forced cleaning, the outright favoritism. Every chilling detail. Silence. Then, they left her alone? At home? For hours. And said she wasn't really part of the family? Yes. Scott's voice was low and furious. I'm getting on a plane. Tonight. What about the Boston account? Let it burn, he snapped. My daughter is more important. The word daughter pierced me in a new way. Not stepdaughter, not your kid. Just his girl. Fierce love and anguish filled my chest. We need a plan, I said. They'll be back before dinner. I don't want them thinking they can just waltz in. I want them gone. So do I agreed. But we have to keep it composed. The girls can't see an explosive confrontation. He took a breath. You're right. We'll ask them to pack their things. Hotel or home, I don't care. They're not staying here another minute. And no more alone time with Madison. Ever. Absolutely, I confirmed. Their access is over. They'll claim we're being dramatic, Scott warned. They'll argue we're coddling her. That discipline is necessary. They can say what they want, I said quietly. But they'll never get the chance to harm her again. Let them say what they will, I said, a calm steel behind my words. Their justifications mean nothing to me. Abandoning our child and making her feel like an outsider is inexcusable. After ending the call, I stepped back into the bathroom. Madison was surrounded by suds, contentedly playing with her plastic sea creatures, innocence momentarily restored. I knelt beside her, gently helping lather her curls, only to notice a faint discoloration forming on her shoulder. How'd you get this little bruise, honey? I asked softly, masking my growing alarm. Madison barely glanced at it. Grandma grabbed me there when I dropped a plate, she murmured. She didn't mean to hurt me. I was being clumsy. I steadied my breathing. Sweetheart, making a mistake doesn't mean you deserve that. Everyone has accidents. That's part of being a kid. No child should bear physical reminders of an adult's frustration. Afterward, I wrapped her in a fluffy towel and helped her into cozy pajamas, even though dinner hour hadn't yet arrived. Tonight, comfort and reassurance mattered more than sticking to routines. We curled up on the couch, watching her favorite animated film, her head resting on my shoulder. I kept my tone gentle as I explained, in terms suitable for her young mind, what was about to happen. Grandma and Grandpa made some very serious mistakes, I began. Mistakes that show they're not safe people to take care of you. So, they won't be staying with us anymore. Her wide eyes searched mine. Are they in trouble? Yes, I replied honestly. A lot of trouble. What they did was wrong. And adults have to face the consequences of their actions. She hesitated. Will I still get to see Lily? My heart ached. Even after everything, she was still thinking about her cousin. Yes, sweetheart. This isn't about Lily. She did nothing wrong. And neither did you. Time ticked forward. It was nearing 5:30, typically when we gathered for our evening meal. I guided Madison upstairs, asking her to stay in her room when they arrived. Promise I'll come get you when it's time. You don't have to worry about anything. Okay? Before I closed the door, she held Mr. Flopsy close and whispered, "You're not mad at me?" "Never," I said firmly, brushing a kiss on her forehead. "You are loved beyond measure." Just as I descended the staircase, tires crunched on gravel. I exhaled slowly, steadying myself. No matter what unfolded, I would stand my ground. My daughter would never again feel unwelcome in the place she called home. The front door opened, and laughter spilled into the foyer. Eleanor entered first, her hands full of branded shopping bags from Adventure World. Robert followed, balancing a sleepy-looking Lily on his shoulders. None of them noticed me until I cleared my throat. Startled, Eleanor pressed her hand to her chest. "Amber, you nearly gave me a heart attack. Why didn't you tell us you were back?" Robert blinked. "Where's Madison?" "She's upstairs," I replied, my tone steady. "Resting after spending hours alone, scrubbing floors in an empty house." A flicker crossed Eleanor's face, discomfort, perhaps, or annoyance at being caught. She recovered quickly, shrugging off her jacket. "Don't exaggerate." She spilled juice and needed to clean up after herself. "It's how children learn accountability." "Accountability?" I echoed, barely containing my fury. "You think deserting an 8-year-old while you gallivanted around an amusement park teaches life lessons?" Robert stepped forward, attempting diplomacy. "Amber, that's not entirely accurate. Madison was having a difficult morning, crying, being dramatic. We figured some alone time would help her reflect. She told me she spilled juice and said sorry," I snapped. "That's hardly reason to punish a child by leaving her behind." "Well, naturally she'd try to paint herself in the best light," Eleanor scoffed. "She's been known to bend the truth. Lily's never had that issue." The casual cruelty of the comparison tightened something in my chest, but I didn't flinch. "Regardless of your version, the facts remain. You abandoned her. That's considered negligence under Massachusetts law. I could call CPS right now." That landed. Robert's complexion paled slightly. Eleanor narrowed her eyes. "You wouldn't," she spat. "We were gone just a little while, and Madison is perfectly fine. Stop overreacting." "I'm not emotional," I said. "I'm a mother who found her child crying, alone, and physically marked. A mother whose daughter was told she wasn't truly family." Robert at least had the decency to glance away. "We didn't say that directly. She told me you emphasized bloodlines. That she's lucky we took her in. That she should be grateful someone wanted her." Eleanor rolled her eyes. "She's overly sensitive. You've always coddled her." "No," I replied sharply. "I've protected her. Something you clearly don't know how to do." The silence that followed was thick. Eleanor's glare didn't waver. Robert looked conflicted. And upstairs, my little girl lay tucked in bed, unaware of the confrontation unfolding beneath her. They were going to be removed from our lives, today. No more harm would touch my daughter under the guise of tradition or tough love. "Children always embellish," Eleanor declared, waving her hand dismissively. "And let's not pretend it isn't true. She isn't biologically related. We've never kept that a secret." "She's 8, I snapped, my voice rising before I could stop it. "And she is related. Scott legally adopted her. She carries your surname. She's your son's daughter, through and through. What else do you need?" Robert stepped forward, clearly aiming to de-escalate. "Look, maybe we misstepped. But you're blowing this out of proportion. We've had Madison all week and things were fine." "Fine?" I repeated, stunned. "She told me everything, every slight, every time you favored Lily. Outings she was excluded from, meals where she got leftovers while Lily had her favorites. How she scrubbed your floor while you went to a theme park. How you grabbed her hard enough to bruise. She was humiliated, neglected, and left alone for hours." Before they could respond, my phone buzzed. Scott's name lit the screen. I answered immediately and switched to speaker mode. "Scott," Eleanor began, her voice suddenly sugary. "Your wife's making wild claims. We've been nothing but loving. But you know how difficult Madison can be. Today, she needed discipline. She stayed home as a consequence of misbehaving." Scott's reply cut through the air like a blade. "You mean you punished her by abandoning her while you spoiled Lily at Adventure World?" "She needed time to reflect," Robert said. "And Lily deserved a reward." "A reward," Scott repeated slowly. "So, to teach a lesson, you left my daughter alone, made her feel like a burden, and reinforced that she's not part of the family?" "Oh, don't be dramatic," Eleanor scoffed. "She's sensitive. Just like her mother. Honestly, Scott, what did you expect? Blood ties matter. Naturally, we're closer to Lily." The atmosphere shifted instantly. The silence that followed was suffocating. What did you just say? Scott's voice was deadly calm. Eleanor faltered. I meant, no, he cut her off. I heard you. And it's revolting. Madison isn't my adopted daughter. She's my daughter. Period. And if you can't treat her with the same respect and care you show Lily, then you don't belong in her life. Eleanor's expression twisted. How dare you speak to me like that? After all we've done for you. And I'm doing what's right for Madison, Scott replied. That's my job, as her father, even if it means protecting her from people who should know better. I took a breath and stepped in. Here's what's happening. You're packing your things and leaving tonight. I don't care if you go to a hotel or drive straight home, but you won't be staying here another minute. And moving forward, you won't be alone with Madison, ever. This is absurd, Eleanor hissed. Robert, say something. Robert hesitated, torn. Let's all calm down. We made a mistake today, yes. But isn't cutting us off too extreme? We're her grandparents. This isn't just about today, I said. It's about the countless moments you made her feel inferior. It's about the emotional harm you inflicted so casually she began believing she deserved it. Scott's voice returned, heavy with disappointment. I'll be on a plane within the hour. When I arrive, you better be gone. We'll talk about limited, supervised visits, after Madison's had time to recover. Until now, Lily had remained silent. But she finally piped up, her small voice uncertain. Is Madison okay? Can I go see her? Her concern pierced through the tension. Even Lily, young as she was, sensed the damage. I knelt down and looked her in the eyes. She's all right. But resting. This isn't about you, sweetheart. You've done nothing wrong. Eleanor immediately seized on the moment. See? You're putting a wedge between cousins. You're tearing this family apart. No, I said, standing again. You did that. When you decided one granddaughter was worthy and the other wasn't. This is nonsense, Eleanor snapped, grabbing her handbag. Come, Robert. We're not going to stand here and be insulted. Robert lingered. May we at least say goodbye? Not tonight, I said gently, yet firmly. He nodded, defeated. And just like that, they turned, retreating toward the door, but I knew the damage they left behind would take far longer to erase. She's endured more than enough, I said, voice soft but resolute. When she's ready, she'll reach out. Not before. Eleanor huffed dramatically, tossing her scarf over her shoulder. Don't fool yourself into thinking this ends here. We'll speak to Scott privately, without your manipulation clouding things. You're welcome to try, I replied calmly. But just so you're aware, he heard every word tonight. And he stands by Madison and me, completely. As they collected their remaining items, Eleanor turned for one final jab. You know, Amber, we always thought Scott could have married someone more suitable. Now we're certain. I smiled, unaffected. Interesting. I was just thinking Madison deserved better grandparents. They departed with slammed doors and screeching tires, dragging a bewildered Lily behind them. The house fell quiet. I leaned against the wall, drained. The confrontation had played out as expected, hostile, defensive, cruel, but it was only the beginning of what would inevitably become a complex and painful fracture, climbing the stairs. Slowly, I reached Madison's door and found her sitting upright with Mr. Flopsy clutched tightly, eyes full of uncertainty. She had clearly overheard parts of the encounter. Did they leave because of me? She asked quietly. I sat beside her, wrapping my arms around her small frame. No, my love. They left because of the choices they made. You did nothing wrong. Will they come back? She asked, looking up at me. Not to stay, I answered gently. But maybe someday, if they learn how to treat everyone in our family kindly, we might see them briefly. With supervision. She nodded, appearing to absorb the explanation. Is Daddy coming back soon? He'll be here in a few hours, I said, brushing a curl from her forehead. He's excited to see you. That evening, as she drifted into sleep with Mr. Flopsy tucked beneath her chin, I sat beside her bed, watching her peaceful expression. My promise to always protect her had been put to the test, and I'd passed. The days ahead would be filled with uncomfortable conversations, difficult choices, and emotional healing. But tonight, she was safe. And that meant everything. Just after midnight, Scott arrived. His face was drawn from the journey, but his energy was tense and wired. As soon as I opened the door, he pulled me into his arms. That was when I finally let go and cried, no longer needing to keep my guard up. I'm so sorry, he whispered into my hair. I can't believe they did this. My parents. To her. We moved to the kitchen, where the gleaming floor Madison had scrubbed now gleamed under the soft overhead lights. I walked him through everything, her words, the bruises, the neglect, and the favoritism. He listened, silent but visibly shaken. I knew they preferred Lily, he muttered, raking fingers through his hair. But I didn't think they were capable of this. Leaving her by herself? Telling her she wasn't really ours? Have they reached out? I asked gently. He nodded. Called several times. I told them we'd talk tomorrow. I couldn't do it tonight. The next morning brought a bit of normalcy. Madison rushed into Scott's arms, squealing with joy. Her laughter lit up the room, and for a moment, it felt like the heaviness had lifted. Over pancakes, we sat down for a family talk, simple, truthful, age-appropriate. Grandma and Grandpa made some bad decisions, Scott explained, holding Madison's hand. And when grown-ups make harmful choices, there are consequences. Like a long timeout, she asked, eyes wide. Exactly, I said. Except their timeout will be a lot longer. And from now on, they can only see you if another trusted adult is present. Are they angry with me? She asked softly. No, sweetheart, Scott said firmly. They're upset, probably, but none of this happened because of you. You did nothing wrong. I need you to believe that. She nodded slowly, processing. Though I could tell doubt still lingered, she seemed reassured. Later that afternoon, with Madison watching a movie, Scott called his parents. He put the phone on speaker, and I sat beside him, silently offering strength. Eleanor picked up instantly. We've been worried sick. After the way you and Amber treated us, tossing us out, Mom, Scott said, cutting her off. I'm calling to make things crystal clear. What you did wasn't a misunderstanding. It was serious, neglect and emotional cruelty. You abandoned Madison for hours. You diminished her place in this family repeatedly. You caused lasting damage. Oh please, Robert interjected. Yes, we shouldn't have left her alone. We admit that. But abuse? Really? Yes, Scott replied without hesitation. You told her she should be thankful anyone wanted her. That she doesn't belong. That's psychological harm, Dad. Do you have any idea how much that hurts a child? We were being honest, Eleanor defended. She's old enough to know she wasn't born into this family. We thought she understood the difference between blood and adoption. There is no difference. Scott burst out, the control in his voice snapping. Not in love. Not in commitment. Not in how she should be treated, ever. Madison belongs to us in every way that counts. From there, the exchange spiraled. Eleanor and Robert began dismissing their behavior, shifting responsibility, even threatening to loop in extended relatives if we didn't calm down. Scott wrapped up the conversation firmly. No private time with Madison going forward, and any potential interaction would be brief, carefully supervised. Predictably, they followed through on their threats. The phones lit up within hours. Cousins, aunts, and distant kin started reaching out, most of them parroting the diluted version Eleanor had likely shared. They just wanted Lily to have a special memory, one aunt claimed. Another, who had never even laid eyes on Madison, accused her of acting out. The pressure mounted fast, but we refused to back down. Then came a call from Michael, Scott's younger sibling. Unlike the others, his voice held hesitation. Lily's been really off, he said. She's asking about Madison constantly and doesn't understand why things are so tense. Scott, can you tell me what actually went on? Scott laid everything bare. No sugarcoating, no softening. He painted the full picture: neglect, manipulation, harsh favoritism. Michael fell silent. When he finally spoke, his voice cracked. She was left by herself? For hours? And Mom actually told her she didn't belong. Scott confirmed it. There's more, he added grimly. I had no idea, Michael whispered. Lily said something about Madison having to clean while she got to relax. I didn't think it meant anything serious, but now? I feel sick. I'm so sorry. How's she doing? That conversation became a catalyst. Michael quietly but firmly sided with us. He began challenging his parents' narrative and reached out to facilitate contact between the cousins. Thanks to him, Madison and Lily resumed talking over video, maintaining their connection despite the adult rift. While family drama brewed in the background, our focus narrowed to Madison's well-being. We found a counselor experienced with blended homes and adoptive dynamics, Dr. Lorraine Carter. Her presence was steady, honest, and exactly what Madison needed. During one early appointment, Dr. Carter asked gently, "What did it feel like when your grandmother said you weren't really part of the family?" Clutching her bunny tighter, Madison's voice broke. Sad, and kind of scared. Like maybe Dad would stop loving me too someday. Scott, holding back emotion, answered firmly, "Never. That will never, ever happen." In follow-ups, more painful truths emerged. What we had discovered was not an isolated event, it had been happening for a long time. Little things. Ignored. Birthdays. Unequal gifts. Backhanded comments disguised as jokes. Slowly, they had taken a toll. Children adapt to what they're given, Dr. Carter explained in a parent-focused session. When they're treated unequally, they often think they deserve it. That it's something lacking in them, not in the adults. The first big occasion following everything was Madison's spring recital at school. Lily would also be performing. Anticipating a confrontation, we prepared Madison carefully. "What if Grandma tries to talk to me alone?" she asked, clearly nervous while we helped her get dressed. "She won't get the chance," I promised. "Either Daddy or I will be with you the entire time. And if anything makes you uneasy, just say the word." When we arrived, the tension in the auditorium hit immediately. Eleanor and Robert stood with Michael's family, Lily between them. In costume. Eleanor's eyes narrowed the moment she saw us. Robert avoided eye contact entirely. We took a separate hallway to escort Madison to her homeroom, then grabbed seats well away from theirs. A few minutes later, Michael approached. "Calm and kind, how's she holding up?" he asked. "Improving," Scott responded. "Sessions with the therapist are helping." Lily's confused. She doesn't really get why everyone's acting strange. But she misses Madison. There was a pause, then Michael added, "I understand why you drew that boundary. I would have done the same if the roles were reversed." That acknowledgement hit deeper than he knew. Once the concert concluded, complete avoidance was no longer possible. They approached while we stood waiting outside Madison's classroom. "She did a lovely job tonight," Robert remarked, tone hesitant. "She really did," I replied evenly, offering nothing more. Eleanor remained silent, her gaze fixed on Madison with a hardened stare that erased any warmth from her expression. As soon as Madison exited the room and spotted them, she immediately gravitated toward me, pressing against my side. Whatever confidence the performance had given her faded in an instant. "Hi there, Madison," Robert said gently, crouching slightly to her level. "You sang wonderfully." "Thanks," she murmured, barely lifting her eyes. "At last," Eleanor spoke. Her words were sharp, her tone brittle with restrained fury. "Well, I guess we should congratulate you both. You've clearly succeeded in turning our granddaughter completely against us." "Mom," Scott said firmly, voice low but resolute. "Not here. This isn't the time." "And when exactly would be the right moment?" she snapped. "You've completely frozen us out, over one misstep." "It wasn't a singular incident," I answered softly, though there was strength in every syllable. "And this isn't the setting to unpack it." We didn't stay long after that. During the drive home, Madison remained uncharacteristically silent in the back seat. I turned around, gently checking in. "Are you all right, sweetheart?" She nodded slowly. "Grandma still looks mad at me." "She's not angry with you," Scott reassured her from the driver's seat, catching her reflection in the mirror. "She's upset about other things, grown-up matters. None of this is your fault." Over the next few months, we upheld every boundary we'd established. Still, we allowed brief, structured meetups, a meal in a public setting, an hour-long park visit where we remained present at all times. These interactions were often strained, especially with Eleanor, who made no effort to conceal her displeasure. "This is absurd," she complained during one such occasion, her fork clinking against a restaurant plate. "I can't even speak to my own granddaughter without someone hovering nearby." "You're correct," I said, meeting her glare with calm certainty. "These guidelines aren't optional. You either follow them or don't see Madison. Entirely your decision." Robert, to his credit, appeared to make some changes. He started bringing age-appropriate gifts, asked questions about Madison's hobbies, and refrained from drawing any comparisons to Lily. Whether this shift reflected genuine remorse or merely surface-level adjustment under scrutiny remained unclear, but it was progress, however modest. The most remarkable shift, though, was the blossoming closeness between the girls. With toxic favoritism no longer clouding their interactions, Madison and Lily formed a stronger connection. They laughed freely during their supervised calls, engaged in shared games during monitored visits, and began building a bond that hadn't been possible before. "The next time, can I sleep over at Lily's house?" Madison asked one afternoon, nearly 4 months after the original confrontation. "That's not something we can do right now," I explained gently, careful not to dampen her spirit. "Maybe one day, if everything continues to improve." "Because of Grandma and Grandpa, right?" she pressed. "Yes," I responded honestly. "Our job is to make sure you're always treated with care and kindness. That's the most important thing." Madison thought about that for a few moments. Then she said something that made me realize how much healing had taken root. "So it wasn't because I'm not really a Henderson, right? It's because they were acting unkind." Scott reached over, his voice filled with pride. "Exactly. And being a Henderson has nothing to do with genes or biology. It means loving one another, respecting each other, and choosing to be family every single day." Half a year after that dreadful discovery, therapy sessions revealed even more than we initially suspected. Hidden beneath casual remarks and subtle actions was a consistent, years-long pattern of preferential treatment and psychological undermining. Moments we'd overlooked now added up to a clear strategy, intentional or not. that had made Madison feel inferior. The encouraging part, Dr. Carter told us during one meeting, is that Madison is still young, and her ability to bounce back is strong. Through steady encouragement and unwavering affection from both of you, Dr. Carter explained during one session, Madison can, and will, recover. Her brain is relearning what love means. You're reprogramming her sense of identity. She's discovering that she's valuable, cherished, and no less than anyone else. Those words echoed within me for days. Scott and I threw ourselves into the process with renewed determination. We began reshaping our family's internal culture. We established meaningful traditions rooted in our story, not defined by history or biology, but by connection and choice. We read books that celebrated adoption, created bedtime routines filled with affirmations, and had honest conversations about how every family looks different, yet every kind can be beautiful. Madison learned, little by little, that her beginnings weren't defined by rejection, but by being chosen, intentionally, wholeheartedly. And we watched her transform. The constant flicker of doubt in her eyes began to fade. Her smiles became spontaneous rather than sought. Instead of tiptoeing through each day hoping to please, she ran, laughed, played, and, most importantly, trusted. Every "I love you" she received was finally believed. Her resilience astonished us, but what amazed me more was how healing her wounds helped mend ours too. As she regained her joy, our entire home felt lighter. Half a year after that terrible episode, our household had achieved a kind of peace. It wasn't perfect, but it was stable, grounded in clarity and boundaries. Madison was thriving during her sessions with Dr. Carter. Scott and I had grown closer, solidified in our partnership. Even the strained ties with his parents shifted slightly, from frozen standoff to a delicate, uneasy civility. Then, something unexpected happened. It was during a lunch at a quiet diner halfway between our homes, neutral ground, always supervised. Short duration. We followed the usual pattern, basic greetings, small talk, pleasantries exchanged like currency. At one point, Madison excused herself to use the restroom. I accompanied her. Scott received a call from a client and stepped outside, leaving Eleanor and Robert alone at the table. When we returned, the atmosphere had changed. Eleanor wasn't speaking. She toyed with her salad, unusually subdued. A few minutes passed before she cleared her throat and spoke, directly to Madison. I need to say something, she said, her voice tremulous and softer than I'd ever heard it. What I did, what your grandfather and I allowed, it was terribly wrong. I never should have abandoned you that day. And what I said about you not being family, those words were cruel. They were false. And I deeply regret them. Madison stared at her, blinking slowly. She seemed caught off guard, unsure how to respond. It's okay, she murmured, an instinctive reply, one born from years of patching over grown-up outbursts with childlike grace. But Robert leaned forward and gently interrupted, No, Madison. It isn't okay. Your grandmother is trying to say she's sorry. We hurt you. You didn't deserve that, and we're ashamed. I sat completely still, watching my daughter's face carefully. I didn't want to speak for her. I wanted her to find her own way through this moment. She looked between them both, then asked, with a quiet bravery that broke my heart, Why would you do that to me? No hesitation. No preamble. Just the direct, unflinching question only a child can ask. Eleanor's expression crumbled. She exchanged a quick glance with Robert before replying, I think I held on too tightly to ideas that should have been let go a long time ago. I thought blood made a family. But I was wrong. Your daddy chose you. And that makes you our family. Just as much as Lily. Just as much as anyone. It wasn't comprehensive. It didn't cover the years of subtle bias or the emotional scars from repeated slights. But it was more acknowledgement than I ever expected to hear from her. I glanced at Madison, who seemed to be weighing their words as if trying to decide whether to hand out another piece of trust. Does this mean we can be friends again? She asked softly. Eleanor nodded, eyes glistening. I hope so. I would like that very much. That fragile conversation marked the beginning of something new, not a resolution, not a miracle fix, but a potential path forward. Shortly afterward, at Dr. Carter's suggestion, Eleanor began individual counseling. She admitted, reluctantly, that her views on family had been shaped by generations of rigid thinking, ideas she was finally ready to confront. Robert, more quiet by nature, took smaller but still meaningful steps. He started asking Madison about her interests without comparing her to Lily, offering attention that was intentional and sincere, and slowly, the most beautiful transformation happened, not in the adults, but in the children. Without the weight of favoritism poisoning their interactions, Madison and Lily discovered a true companionship. They laughed more, invented silly games, exchanged drawings and secrets. The relationship they built was organic and joyful. It proved what we had always suspected, the conflict had never been between them. It had been handed down to them by grown-ups who didn't know better. "I hope someday I can stay overnight at Lily's house," Madison said one evening, curled up next to me with a book. "Maybe," I replied honestly. "We still have to make sure everyone's safe, always." She looked at me thoughtfully. "It wasn't because I'm adopted, right? It's because they were being unkind." Scott, sitting nearby, leaned in and smiled. "Exactly. And being a Henderson? That's not something you inherit. It's something you earn by loving people." 6 months had brought setbacks and milestones. Therapy unveiled deeper wounds than we imagined, quiet, everyday slights that had stacked like bricks around her heart. But she was tearing them down, one by one. And we were rebuilding something stronger in their place. Lily, once unaware of the complexities swirling around her cousin, had grown into an unexpected advocate. Now better understanding the undercurrents of past behavior, she developed a quiet but fierce protectiveness over Madison. "You should ask Madison what she wants, too, not just me," she would interject, especially when Eleanor began slipping into old dynamics. Coming from her, those words landed differently. Eleanor often paused longer after Lily's pointed reminders than she ever did after anything Scott or I said. It was as if hearing correction from the grandchild she'd always favored revealed the truth in a way she couldn't ignore. Scott's relationship with his parents had fundamentally shifted. The unshakable confidence he'd once placed in them had vanished, replaced with careful observation and a watchful distance. Still, as they displayed moments of sincere effort, he allowed himself to cautiously hope, maybe not for repair, but at least for progress. "I feel like I'm raising my parents," he admitted one evening as we sat quietly in the kitchen, the house dim except for the warm overhead light. "Like we're teaching them how to love our daughter properly." "You are," I said, placing my hand over his. "But you're also breaking something toxic that's been handed down. Maybe they learned this from their parents. But Madison won't." Over time, the extended relatives, who had initially echoed Eleanor and Robert's diluted version of events, began seeing the fuller picture. Their initial skepticism gave way to understanding, thanks largely to Michael and his wife. They became our allies, calmly clarifying facts, bridging conversations, and gently redirecting narratives within the broader family circle. "Mom told me she still doesn't know why she acted the way she did," Michael confided to Scott during one of their lunches. "She said it wasn't like she decided to love Lily more. It just happened. She's trying to unpack that now." That admission didn't excuse what had happened, but it opened the door for accountability. For the first time, Eleanor wasn't hiding behind excuses. She was confronting the roots of her choices, however uncomfortable they were. Throughout it all, Madison's healing remained our deepest concern. The emotional injuries left by years of inconsistency, favoritism, and exclusion had run deep. Yet, given the right environment, children can recover in ways that feel nothing short of miraculous. "I used to think something was wrong with me," Madison shared during a family session, holding her stuffed rabbit like a shield. "Like maybe I wasn't good enough to be a real Henderson. But now I know that's not true. I am a Henderson. And a Wilson. I have 2 names, and 2 families who care about me." Her quiet confidence undid me. To watch a little girl who had once shrunk under glances and backhanded comments now speak with clarity and assurance, it was the most beautiful transformation I'd ever witnessed. 12 months after that unforgettable afternoon, the one where we discovered our daughter abandoned, alone, scrubbing grime from tiles she should never have been responsible for, we had created a new kind of balance. Visits with Eleanor and Robert continued under close supervision. As time passed and they demonstrated accountability and consistent respect for boundaries, the length of those visits gradually increased. Madison felt safer around them, though she still held back, more cautious with them than anyone else in her orbit, and that was okay. "Healing takes time. This isn't about erasing the past," Dr. Carter reminded all of us during a rare session that included the grandparents. "It's about confronting it head-on, acknowledging what happened, and deciding that the future can be different." Eleanor nodded slowly. Her usual defensiveness, which once flared up with even the slightest criticism, was absent. "I never want Madison to feel like she doesn't belong again. I'm learning. It's slow, but I'm trying." And for once, I believed her. We marked Madison's 9th birthday with a celebration that included everyone. Family filled our home, some by blood, some by choice, but all now bound by a deeper understanding of what love requires. As candles flickered on her cake and the room broke into a cheerful chorus of "Happy Birthday," I watched her eyes shine with unfiltered joy. This time, there was no unease. No looking over her shoulder. No tension in her posture. Surrounded by genuine warmth, she laughed freely. I thought back to that day. The horror of finding her on her knees, scrubbing grime in silence. The disbelief. The fury. And the pain of hearing that her own grandparents had made her question her worth. But then I looked at her now, secure, celebrated, and fiercely loved, the road to this moment had been paved with hard choices, setting firm boundaries, cutting through generational biases, demanding accountability, and refusing to settle for anything less than respect. It hadn't been easy, and it never would be. But the reward, the sight of our daughter thriving, was everything. Madison now knew, without question, that she mattered. That she was irreplaceable. That she was worth standing up for, and that, above all else, was the legacy we were building. As I watched Madison giggle beside Lily, her small hands tearing the paper from a thoughtfully wrapped present chosen by Eleanor, a warmth settled over me. The way she lit up when Scott crouched beside her to snap a picture, grinning behind the camera like the proudest father on earth, confirmed what my heart already knew. We had made the right choices. Every hard conversation, every tear-filled night, every boundary we were told was too much, it had all led here. We had stood between our daughter and the storm when she was too small to weather it alone. We had told her through our actions that love isn't defined by who shares your blood, but by who shows up, who chooses you, and who never lets go, even when it's hard. If you're watching this and have ever felt pressured to endure unfair treatment for the sake of keeping the peace, especially when it comes to your children, I hope our story reminds you of this. Peace that costs a child's self-worth is not peace at all. It's silence. It's erasure. And you are allowed to demand more. Protecting your child may fracture relationships you once valued. It may mean losing the illusion of harmony. But it also means gaining something far more precious, the trust of the little person who looks to you for safety, and the knowledge that you did not let them down. It's never easy. But it is always, always, worth it. So I'll leave you with this. Have you ever had to set painful boundaries to protect your child? Did you face backlash? Regret? Relief? I'd love to hear your story. Let's make this a space where parents can support each other in doing the hard, brave thing. Share your experience in the comments below. And if this story touched you, if it felt like a piece of your own journey, please like the video and subscribe to my channel. I share more real, raw stories about motherhood, family, and the imperfect, beautiful work of doing what's right, no matter how messy it gets. Thank you for being here. And always remember, blood doesn't make a family. Love does.